Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Naurin. In today's bulletin, we will present important news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. US basketball star Greiner released from Russian custody. Over 1,000 NYT workers go on strike over wage dispute. Biden signs Me Too law curbing confidentiality agreements. Biden speaks at Vigil honoring victims of gun violence. Schumer re-elected Senate leader after Dems expand majority. Christmas ornament honors gingerbread White House tradition. Two firefighters die in house fire, body found outside. Celine Dion cancels shows because of stiff person syndrome. Hawaii Remembrance draws a handful of Pearl Harbor survivors. FDA clears updated COVID-19 vaccines for kids under age 5. New Peru president sworn in after impeachment. Iran carries out first known execution over protest on Mahsa Amini's death. Scrutiny of Ukraine church draws praise, fear of overreach. China begins implementing relaxed anti-COVID-19 measures. Harry and Meghan slam British tabloids in new Netflix series. Bogarts to Padres for 11 years, $280 million. And Messi resumes World Cup quest as Argentina plays Netherlands. Now news in detail. US basketball star Brittany Greiner has been released in a prisoner swap with Russia and is now in US custody. President Joe Biden said on Thursday. The Russian Foreign Ministry said it traded Greiner for Russian citizen Viktor Bout, a former arms dealer. The swap occurred at the Abu Dhabi airport in the United Arab Emirates. Russian news agencies said she is safe, she is on a plane, she is on her way home, Biden said in a tweet. Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke by phone with Greiner from the Oval Office, a U.S. official said, adding that the call included Greiner's wife, Cheryl. One White House released a photo of the telephone call. Greiner, who is 32 years old, a star of the Women's National Basketball Association's Phoenix Mercury, was arrested on February 17. Talks to secure her release were complicated by Russia's February 24 invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent deep souring of ties between Washington and Moscow. A two-time Olympic gold medalist, Greiner was arrested at a Moscow airport when vape cartridges containing cannabis oil, which is banned in Russia, were found in her luggage. She was sentenced on August 4 to 9 years in a penal colony on charges of possessing and smuggling drugs. She had pleaded guilty but said she had made an honest mistake and had not meant to break the law. Last month, she was taken to a penal colony in the Russian region of Mordovia to serve her prison sentence. More than 1,000 New York Times employees went on strike at midnight Thursday in the first industrial action of its kind in more than 40 years, their union said. Journalists and other workers at the storied media outlet, often referred to as America's paper of record, walked out for 24 hours after failing to reach an agreement with the company on a new round of contract negotiations, the union said. The News Guild of New York, a union representing the striking workers, had said that a key sticking point was the management's refusal to raise wages in line with surging inflation. Over 1,100 New York Times workers are now officially on work stoppage, the first of this scale at the company in 4 decades, the union tweeted early Thursday morning. New York Times spokeswoman Danielle Rhodes told US media in a statement that negotiations had not broken down and it is disappointing that they are taking such an extreme action when we are not at an impasse. The union said its members were willing to do what it takes to win a better newsroom for all. President Joe Biden on Wednesday signed legislation curbing the use of confidentiality agreements that block victims of sexual harassment from speaking publicly about misconduct in the workplace. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Biden had acted on the Bipartisan Speak Out Act, which bars the use of non-disclosure agreements that employees or contractors are required to sign, often as a condition of employment. The new law, among the workplace changes pushed in the wake of the Me Too movement, applies to any non-disclosure agreements, also known as NDAs, signed before a dispute has occurred. The law would make existing non-disclosure agreements unenforceable. It also would apply to any agreements between providers of goods and services and their customers. President Joe Biden called again Wednesday for a ban on so-called assault weapons as he spoke at a vigil honoring victims of gun violence, an event taking place nearly 10 years since the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, that spurred a new generation of advocacy for tougher firearms restrictions. It's just common sense. It's simple common sense, Biden said at the National Vigil for all victims of gun violence at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. It was the first time a US president has spoken at the yearly vigil, which is now in its 10th year, according to event organizers. Though the observance is led by the Newtown Action Alliance Foundation, it is meant to honor all victims of gun violence nationwide, and the group is expected to be joined by more than 100 other similarly minded organizations. Killed at Sandy Hook in the school shooting on December 14, 2012 were 20 first graders and 6 educators. Senator Chuck Schumer was unanimously elected Thursday for another term as Senate Democratic leader, helming a bolstered 51-seat majority for a new era of divided government in Congress. Senate Democrats met behind closed doors at the Capitol to choose their leadership team for the new Congress that begins in January. As Senate Majority Leader, Schumer has proven to be surprisingly steady, if frenzied, force amid one of the more consequential sessions of Congress. He took the helm in the weeks after the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol and led his party through the COVID-19 crisis and unexpected legislative achievements, many of them bipartisan. A former campaign chief, he steered the party to the majority and expanded it to 51 seats with Senator Raphael Warnock's special election win Tuesday in Georgia. Schumer's re-election puts 2 New Yorkers at the top of the Democratic leadership in Congress, alongside Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the incoming House Minority Leader. Jeffries was elected to lead Democrats after Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decision to step aside next year. This year's Christmas ornament from the White House Historical Association honors the tradition of displaying a gingerbread model of the executive mansion as part of the holiday decorations at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The 2022 ornament, a gingerbread house shaped like the mansion, honors President Richard Nixon's administration. It was First Lady Patricia Nixon who first put a gingerbread house on display in the state dining room for the holidays. That was long before the talented White House pastry chefs began making 100-pound replicas of the executive mansion. Now holiday time at the White House would feel incomplete without one. Initially, these were frame houses, but now they are actual White Houses, gingerbread houses built in the shape of the White House. Stuart McLaurin, president of the association, told the Associated Press in an interview. The privately funded association began selling the popular annual White House Christmas ornament in 1981. The 2022 ornament shows the north and south fronts of a gingerbread White House that is decorated with white piping, red and white candies, gumdrops, and candy canes. Each ornament comes with a booklet on the history of that particular presidency, and this year's is gingerbread scented. Pennsylvania State Police said 2 firefighters died responding to a house fire where a body was found, while 2 people who lived in the home got out safely. The firefighters who died were identified as members of the New Tripoli Fire Company. Assistant Fire Chief Zachary Paris, 36 years old, and Mervyn Gruber, 59 years old, Trooper David Boehm said. The body of another person was discovered outside the house on the property, which sits on large plot of land in West Penn Township near Tamaqua in Schuylkill County. West Penn Township Police Chief James Bonner said 2 other people, an uncle and nephew, lived in the 3-story single-family home and were able to escape the fire. He said 2 other firefighters were treated for injuries. They said more than 100 firefighters and officers responded shortly before 4 p.m. Bonner called it an active crime scene, with Pennsylvania State Police and the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms assisting the investigation. Celine Dion has put a halt on all performing after being diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder. In an emotional video messages posted in French and English on Thursday on Instagram, Dion said stiff person syndrome was causing spasms that affect her ability to walk and sing. Unfortunately, the spasms affect every aspect of my daily life, sometimes causing difficulties when I walk and not allowing me to use my vocal cords to sing the way I am used to, she said. Dion said she had no choice but to postpone her Courage tour, which was to restart in February after several delays. Her spring 2023 shows have been moved to 2024 and her summer 2023 concerts have been cancelled. A handful of centenarian survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor joined about 2,500 members of the public at the scene of the Japanese bombing on Wednesday to commemorate those who perished 81 years ago. The audience sat quietly during a moment of silence at 7:55 a.m., the same time the attack began on December 7, 1941. Sailors aboard the USS Daniel Inouye stood along the rails of the guided missile destroyer while it passed both by the grassy shoreline where the ceremony was held and the USS Arizona Memorial to honor the survivors and those killed in the attack. About 2,400 servicemen were killed in the bombing, which launched the US into World War II. The USS Arizona alone lost 1,177 sailors and Marines, nearly half the death toll. Most of the Arizona's fallen remained entombed in the ship, which sits on the harbor floor. US regulators on Thursday cleared doses of the updated COVID-19 vaccines for children younger than age 5. The Food and Drug Administration's decision aims to better protect the littlest kids from severe COVID-19 at a time when children's hospitals already are packed with tots suffering from a variety of respiratory illness. Omicron-targeted booster shots made by Moderna and rival Pfizer already were open to everyone 5 and older. The FDA now has cleared their use in tots starting at age 6 months, but just who is eligible depends on what vaccinations they have already had and which kind. Few youngsters have gotten the full primary series since shots for the littlest kids began in June. Now it's time for global updates. Peru's Congress swore in a new president on Wednesday, in a day of sweeping political drama that saw the former leader Pedro Castillo arrested after his ousting from office in an impeachment trial, hours after he attempted a last-ditch bid to stay in power by trying to dissolve Congress. Ignoring Castillo's attempt to shut down the legislature by decree, lawmakers moved ahead with the previously planned impeachment trial, with 101 votes in favor of removing him, 6 against and 10 abstentions. The result was announced with loud cheers, and the legislature called Vice President Dina Boluarte to take office. The 60-year-old Boluarte was sworn in as president through 2026, making her the first woman to lead Peru. She called for a political truce after months of instability that have seen 2 prior impeachment attempts, and said a new cabinet inclusive of all political stripes would be formed. The public ministry said on Wednesday evening that Castillo had been detained and accused of the crime of rebellion for breaking the constitutional order. Iran carried out its first known execution Thursday over protests sparked by Mahsa Amini's death, hanging a man convicted of blocking a street and wounding a paramilitary member in what human rights activists condemned as show trials. Demonstrations have swept Iran for nearly 3 months since Amini died after her arrest by the morality police in Tehran for an alleged breach of the country's strict hijab dress code for women. Mohsen Shekhari, a rioter who blocked Sattar Khan Street in Tehran on September 25 and wounded one of the security guards with a machete, was executed Thursday morning. The judiciary's Mizan online website said the ruling was condemned by human rights activists based abroad. The judiciary said Shekhari was found guilty of fighting and drawing a weapon with the intention of killing, causing terror and disturbing the order and security of society. It convicted him of muharebe, or waging war against God, under Iran's Islamic Sharia law. On 1st November, said Mizan, adding that he appealed the ruling but the Supreme Court upheld it on November 20. After its searches of holy sites belonging to Ukraine's historic Orthodox Church, the nation's security agency posted photos of evidence it recovered, including rubles, Russian passports, and leaflets with messages from the Moscow Patriarch. Supporters and detractors of the church debate whether such items are innocuous or increase suspicions the church is a nest of pro-Russian propaganda and intelligence gathering. What's unambiguous are other photos shared by the agency, known as the SBU, posted as recently as Wednesday, some showing an armed Ukrainian officer standing outside a church building, others showing brawny, camouflaged officers questioning clerics in long beards and cassocks. They illustrate the increased pressure the Ukrainian government is putting on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church with its centuries-old ties to Moscow, as the brutal Russian invasion slogs into the 10th month of a war that has had religious dimensions from the start. China began implementing a more relaxed version of its strict zero-COVID policy on Thursday, amid steps to restore normal life, but also trepidation over a possible broader outbreak once controls are eased. The country reported 21,165 new coronavirus cases on Thursday, though it was unclear whether the lower number reflected fewer infections or a reduction in testing. The National Health Commission issued relaxed anti-pandemic regulations on Wednesday, including a loosening of lockdowns and the elimination of a requirement that a recent negative COVID-19 test be shown to enter most public places. The Commission said it was due to positive results in fighting the virus and because of a recognition that the current Omicron variant is less dangerous than earlier versions of the virus, a fact long embraced by other countries that have reopened their societies. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan made a sweeping indictment of Britain's media and the racism they believe has fueled coverage of their relationship in a new Netflix series that promises to tell the full story of the couple's estrangement from the royal family, relying on interviews with the couple as well as their friends and experts on race and the media. The first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan dissect the close relationship between tabloid newspapers and the royal family while discussing the history of racism in the British Empire and how it still pervades society. The episodes do not include dissenting voices, and there is no response from any of the media organizations mentioned. Buckingham Palace has declined to comment. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,399.94. The NYSE composite is increased by 88.15 points or 0.58%. Tokyo stock close price is 27,574.43. The Nikkei 225 index is decreased by 111.97 points or 0.40%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,197.3499. The Shanghai Composite Index is decreased by 2.27 points or 0.07%. Hong Kong stock close price is 19,450.23. The Hang Seng Index is increased by 635.41 points or 3.38%. Bombay stock close price is 62,570.68. The Sensex index is increased by 160.00 points or 0.26%. Now a look of today's sports stories. The San Diego Padres and Xander Bogaerts agreed to a blockbuster $280 million 11-year contract Wednesday night, adding the All-Star slugger to an already deep lineup. A person familiar with the negotiations confirmed the contract to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity because it was pending a physical. The Padres already had Fernando Tatis Jr. at shortstop, but he missed the entire season because of injuries and an 80-game suspension for testing positive for a performance-enhancing drug. San Diego also met with Aaron Judge and Trey Turner before the big stars opted for different teams. The Padres reached the NL Championship Series this year before losing to the Phillies. Now the FIFA World Cup update. The quarter-final match between Argentina and the Netherlands has all the ingredients of a classic, and the possibility of it being Messi's final game on soccer's biggest stage just adds to the anticipation. The 7-time World Player of the Year is 3 wins away from achieving his ultimate dream, but he has two people in particular blocking his path. First, the not inconsiderable frame of Van Dijk, who has been one of the world's best defenders over the past 5 years. If there is anyone able to stop Messi on one of his trademark dribbles, it is the graceful Liverpool centre-back who combines pace with a great reading of the game. And then there is Louis van Gaal. The wily tactician, who is 71, has recently undergone successful treatment for prostate cancer and is now plotting to win the World Cup in perhaps the final job of his 26-year coaching career. Brazil wants to keep the dancing going at the World Cup when it faces Croatia on Friday, with a spot in the semi-finals on the line. The Brazilians have made it clear they will not back from their goal celebrations in Qatar despite criticism by some. It's part of the Brazilian culture. Brazil coach Tite said Thursday, "It's not about disrespecting our opponents, it's just who we are." Tite himself was dancing with his players after Brazil scored in the 4-1 win against South Korea in the round of 16 on Monday. Former Manchester United midfielder Roy Keane was among those criticizing the Brazilians for their dancing. Brazil forward Vinicius Jr. also promised more dancing if Brazil keeps succeeding. Let's have a look on today's weather chart. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.